Hello. Hello. Am I audible to those who tuned in today? You could just send a message to let us know that you can hear us. Yeah. Hello. Hello, can you hear us? Hello, are you able to hear us? Hello, testing. I think there are people watching. But, just a minute. Just ask. Can you hear us? If you can, do send us a message just to know that we are audible. Yeah. It is live. Just hold on, folks. There's a slight technical glitch here. We should be on very soon. Are we audible? Are we audible? Are we audible, everyone? Are we audible and are we visible? Could you please comment and let us know? I think they will try putting on the live again. See, we are visible. Yes. Yeah? Yes. Okay, sorry for that slight hitch because we have some problem here playing the video, but since you can hear us and we are audible, we're going to go ahead. Welcome to Sugar and Spice. Yes, this is our very first session on this storytelling space. My close friend Deepthi and I, we plan to have a lot of fun with all of you story lovers out there, and we do hope that you have as much fun as we do too. So, we've got two very, very different stories lined up for you today, and we'd like you to give us your feedback about whether you liked it or you like the narration or there's something that you like different, your suggestions. Everything would be welcome because this is all about us, story lovers. So before we go on, let me hand over this little mic to Deepthi.
Hello everyone, Nikki here. I hope you can hear us. You can see us. So, like Shrija said, Shrija and I are just here to have a good time on a Saturday evening. Just have a good get together time with stories, of course. I'm sure we all are here for the common love for stories. And we like to listen and tell stories. So, the first storyteller, of course, for today is Shrija. And Shrija, if I can tell you a few things about Shrija, Shrija is a very dear friend, first of all. And she, on the professional front, she's quite a known person in the media industry as well. She has been with Doordarshan, she has been an RJ, and very recently she has authored a book. So she is ventured into writing, and she has written this beautiful book called Under the Tamarind Tree. So, along with our session today, I would like to request all of you, since I know you all love stories, this is one book you must not miss. It really keeps you on your toes throughout. It's a really nice experience. I have read the book myself. So, um, you should all pick a copy. So that's a little advertisement for Srija's book. But definitely, I do mean it. This was not planned. But definitely, you must read this book. And today's story, what it's going to be, how it's going to be, Srija is a better person to tell you that. So over to Srija. And let us start right away. And just, I think, a few more comments, if you could just tell us this, it's going fine, and because our video is kind of frozen and we cannot see much here on our screen. So if you could just tell us, I can see your comments. Um, could you just let us know that we are audible and everything is clear and everything is fine and we are good to go? Over to you, Shrija.
Yes, just before I dive right into the first story, a little bit about my very close friend Deepthi, who's sitting here beside me. Of course, mainly because she's a story lover, like I am, and all of you out there. And also, she runs an after school for children in Indranagar, because the classes now are online. And yes, if you notice, I've written it down so I don't forget. Yes. And she is a freelance facilitator for many children's programs. So she's really good at them. And most important, she's also a part of several storytelling organizations. So I have a professional here sitting beside me. I just hope I do justice to her as well. So that much, a little bit about us. Yes, we hope we don't have any technical hitches in the future because I can tell you it's very difficult looking at a frozen screen and pretending that we can see and we can see ourselves talk. But it's okay as long as you can hear us. Do send in your comments, folks. We want you to enjoy the story. So let me start with the first one. We plan actually two very different stories today. One from old Britain and one from our very own India, from ancient India, you could say, from the depths of Indian mythology. We have some beautiful legends, and that is what Deepthi is going to tell you right after I finish with my story. So I've chosen one from the master storyteller himself, Roald Dahl, and I'm sure you all know him more as a children's storyteller. But then he also has written a lot of adult stories. And what is very very interesting about this author is he has a very quirky sense of humor. So you never know what is going to spring up at what point in the story, but it's extremely interesting, trust me. I picked out one that I love. It's called The Landlady. So the story goes like this. Billy Weaver, you could say young Billy Weaver, got off at a station in Bath. He had travelled all the way down from London. It was late night, extremely cold. The cold felt like a sheet of ice on his face, is what the author says. And he quickly walks up to the porter nearby and asks him if he could suggest a place for lodgings close by because he had to spend the night there. For you see, Billy Weaver had come in to start his career the very next morning. He was asked by his boss, Mr. Grinslade, to join up and report to the branch manager early next morning and to find lodgings for the night when he reached Bath. And that's what Billy was doing because he wanted to be a very successful career man. He was only 17, but he was dressed just right with a new hat, with a new overcoat, sparkling new shoes, everything new about him, and even the briskness in his walk, because he was told that all successful men are very, very brisk in whatever they do. So he wanted to do that as well. And the porter told him that yes, you could, if you go right down this road, maybe it's a few minutes walk. There's a Bell and Dragon, and you might find it's a pub house where you would find lodgings for the night if you walk fast enough. Billy thanked the porter and started on his journey down the road. And of course, he was curious. He was young, Billy. So he looked along the road as he walked, and he found that there were very, very tall and swanky looking houses on either side of the road. They all had pillars, they all had porches, they had steps leading up to the doors, but they all did look a little jaded, a little washed out, like they had seen better times, because he did find paint peeling off on some of them. But as he was walking down, what caught his attention was a little board on one of the windows of the houses, one of the houses. So, out of curiosity, he stopped and peeped in. Excuse me. And he found this board which said bed and breakfast there in large black letters. But what caught him was not the bed and breakfast sign, but what was behind that little placard, because it was a beautiful scene and he couldn't help peeping. He couldn't resist peeping into the window because it was a very cozy scene inside. There was a fire burning far away in the room. It was dimly lit, but he could see comfortable sofas all over the room, soft rugs on the floor, plump pillows thrown here and there, and even a little dog curled up in front of the fire, and even a parrot in a cage. Now, when you see animals in a room and in such a peaceful situation, well, you wondered if it might be a better idea lodging here for the night. But then he said, no, I think it's better I go to the pub because I'd most likely get a drink there. It would be easier getting a drink there, and I would meet more people. So, thinking of this, Billy turned back. Now, at that point, something very curious happened. Billy felt himself being forced, or that's what he thought, to turn back and look at the placard. It was as if the letters were calling out to him, and before he knew it, young Billy had climbed the stairs of the house and rung the doorbell. He hadn't want to do it. He didn't want to do it, mind you, but he did it all the same. And when he rang the bell, he could hear the bell ringing deep inside the house. Now, normally when you ring the bell, you would normally expect, a few minutes, maybe a few seconds before the doors open, but it didn't happen in this case. It was like the person behind the door was just waiting there to open the door. It was flung open like a jack in the box. He saw this woman who must have been around 45 or 50-ish, a round, sweet looking woman with bright blue, sparkling blue eyes, and she reminded him of a hot bun from the oven. She looked so rosy and warm, and she smiled in a very welcoming way and said, "Come on in, my dear. You don't stand in the cold. Come into the house." So Billy wondered. He stood there and asked her, I just saw your board for lodging, so I just thought I'd come in and ring the bell and find out how much do you charge. And she said, of course, it's sixpence and five. And when Billy heard this, he stood shocked for a little while because he hadn't expected to be that cheap. He had planned on almost double the rate for his lodgings. So he stood there for a minute in silence, and the lady misunderstood it, the landlady. And so he said, "If you think that's dear, I can reduce it for you. But maybe I wouldn't be able to serve you eggs for breakfast because this is inclusive of breakfast." Billy got over his initial shock and rushed to tell her, no, 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 I'm fine with it. I'll stay here. It's perfectly fine and I'll pay you what you asked for. And he goes into that room that he had fallen in love with from outside. And she said, come, let me show you your room. And she looks him up and down and smiles and says, you're perfect, dear. You're just perfect. So Billy didn't quite figure out what that meant, but he followed her anyway. And she climbed the stairs up. And the first floor, when they reached the first floor, she said, these are my lodgings. So yours is on the second floor. And they climbed up another flight of stairs. And Billy couldn't help asking because he hadn't found any coats or umbrellas, in the hall. So is there no one else staying there? She smiled and said, no, no, we have the place to ourselves this time. So it's going to be really nice. And here's your room. So she opened the door to a very, very dear little room with everything just right. Even the bed covers were pulled back. They looked aired. And she told him that she put a hot water bottle between the sheets just to keep it nice and warm for him, and the windows were just right, the curtains were all drawn, and it looked like it was readied for someone to come in. And Billy looked at her in surprise. She says, yes, I'm always ready, my dear, because I never know when the perfect person comes in, and you are just perfect. Billy, it felt a little awkward at that point, but he smiled at her because she had such a sweet, loving smile. And he started getting ready to unpack. And she asked him, would you like to have some dinner? He said, no, no, I think I'll skip dinner and just go to bed right away because I have to report early tomorrow morning. So I think I'll do that. And she said, okay, fine, you do that. But dear, there's one little thing I'd like you to do. I'd like you to come down and sign in the guest book because it's protocol, I can't take lodgers in without having their name signed in. So Billy agreed and said, of course I'll do that. I'll just unpack my bag and I'll be down if that's okay. She said, yes, of course. And she went out and shut the door quickly after her. Billy looked after her for a minute and wondered, okay, she must be a little dotty, a little weird she sounds, but maybe she's lost a son or something like that, which is why she's taken up with me. But never mind, she's a dear old soul. Let me go and sign the book. So once he was done, ready for the night, he trotted down the stairs and went to the guest book, a large dusty thing. And he opened the pages and looked in. He could only find two entries, just two names. Now I'm looking at the names because I always tend to forget this at this point. One was a Christopher Mulholland and another one was Gregory W. Temple. He looked at the names and something about them caught his attention. Something, it's one of those tantalizing memories that stay in your head and you're never quite able to figure out what it is, but it bothers you all the same. So he stood there trying to remember where he had seen these names somewhere, and quite some time back, he couldn't figure out when. And while he was standing there thinking about this, he was startled by his landlady's voice, who said, "Oh, there you are. I've got a lovely cup of tea for you. Come here, my dear, and even a ginger biscuit, so that you can have something warm before you sleep, because we didn't want dinner after all." Of course, Billy told her that you shouldn't have. It was perfectly fine. She said, no, no, nothing doing. I wanted you to have it, so do come. And what charming boys were there, she said, indicating the guest book. So he said, you mean uh, these two names that I see here, they look very familiar. Were they, well-known footballers or maybe cricketers? I've seen them before. She says, I wouldn't know that, my dear, but they were very, very charming boys, really charming boys. Now come on and have your tea. Now, Billy was going to join his landlady on the sofa where she had, patted a little space beside her after placing the tea things cozily on a low table in front of her. Just when he was going to join her, he again looked at the register and he was a little surprised because he said, hello, these entries look pretty old. Now, one was dated 2 years back, another one 3 years back. You mean to say that they were here this early? They were not, you haven't had anybody after that? She said, come on, dear, let's have tea now. They were very charming boys, and your Mr. Mulholland loved his tea. I'm sure you'll love it too. Come on. So she hadn't quite answered his question, but Billy went up anyway, sat down, and started sipping the tea that his landlady had poured very lovingly for him. He didn't quite like the taste, and he didn't quite like a smell that seemed to be coming. He wasn't sure if it was from the tea or if it was from the landlady, but it reminded him of pickled walnuts and hospital corridors, not very pleasant. But he drank a little bit for politeness sake. and he could see her watching him over the rim of her cup as she drank her tea. He said to himself, she is a little weird, but I'm sure she must have lost a boy of her own. And he finished as much as he could of the tea and kept it down. And he kept looking at her and said, "So these guests, these lodgers of yours, did they leave very recently?" So she said, "They never left, dear. They're right here." So Billy was a little shocked. "What do you mean they're right here? You mean they're still here? They're still lodging at your boarding house?" She says, "Of course. They're on the third floor. You're on the second. They're on the third floor." Willie quietly looked away and he kept staring into the distance and then he spoke to her again. "Ma'am, there's one thing I'd like to ask. Is that parrot a stuffed parrot? The one in the cage?" She smiled, a very proud smile at him and said, "Yes, dear, stuffed. In fact, if you look at the door, the little dachshund that's curled up near the fire, that's a stuffed one too." "Oh," said Billy, shocked. And he got up and walked up to the little dog, which looked so dear from far away. He bent down and placed his fingers on what looked like soft fur. His fingers went right down and he parted the fur to see grisly looking greyish skin underneath. He pulled his hand cold and hard. He pulled his hand back, repulsed. And he told her, "This is done very well. It looks extremely realistic. Who did this?" She said, "I did it, dear. I stuff my pets. In fact, I stuff them when they pass away. When they die, I stuff them." "Okay," said Billy, and slowly walked back. He sat down on the sofa and looked at her. And he asked her, "So tell me, when did your lodgers leave? You said they left. When you said they didn't leave, so they're still here. So you mean to say you didn't have anybody coming in after that into this lovely place of yours? You didn't have any other lodgers who came in to stay?" She looked at him with a half smile, with bright eyes and a half smile, and said, "No, my dear. After them, you're the only one. You're the only one who's been here after them." And there the story ends, folks. The rest is left for conjecture. Up to you to understand what it could be. Yes, Deepti, what do you
Oh,
have to
I'm
say?
cold. I'm cold and I'm completely freaked out.
And it's nothing to do with the weather.
Right, it's nothing to do with the weather. It was really, really creepy, Shrija. I must say that the way you started, I thought it must be going somewhere totally different, but it went somewhere else.
Okay.
But it was awesome. I hope you all liked it. We cannot, I think, because of the technical issue, we cannot see the comments as well. We're just able to see who is watching, the number of people who are watching. So, what do you think we should do? Shall we end the video and start a new live for the second story?
Do you think we could do that? Yeah. Yes, we could.
We could do that. I think whoever is watching, please do not go away.
Yeah.
We're right back in a moment.
We have one more lovely story to tell you. This one, as I told you, is an Indian one, an Indian legend, extremely interesting. So do stay tuned. It's just a few seconds. We'll be back with you.